Hey everybody, Stinger here. I want to invite you to a pretty cool podcast.
Watch this film. Be quite nice. Have a good time. Be very evil. And you'll love that Danhausen.
Hey, this is Big Sexy Kevin Nash.
Yes, it is I, Big E, but more importantly, it is you.
And you might remember me from such YouTube greats as Being the Elite and Chris Daniels Almost Dies.
And if you're looking for the very best wrestling content, you better come to Good Mic Work Commentaries.
And I'm just going to tell you now, as a role model, you got to tune into this because if you also want to be a role model, you got to learn from the best.
We have a rapport, and we have been so close over so many years. This is not a cameo or a paid endorsement in any regard. This is a message of friendship.
Man, we met 20 years ago, 21 years ago now. Time is flying, isn't it?
I want to wish you all the best in your YouTube channel, and hopefully I can maybe make a special guest appearance on there sometime.
And I used to say, hey, Greg Morgan, and he used to say, please call me Greg, and I wouldn't do it.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Awesome YouTube channel. Now, if you've seen these videos before, you know what I'm talking about.
We would do verbal chain wrestling. You know, we'd be off in the yard, the schoolyard at recess.
And he's also a 40-year-old wrestling fan. That's a long damn time.
And we'd just be staring at each other, and he'd say, hammerlock. And I'd say, all right, I've reversed the hammerlock into a hammerlock of my own, then I put you in a headlock. And, you know, that would go on for hours.
He's not going to fill your head with bullshit. He's going to tell you real deal, what's up, and that's that.
Raw, SmackDown, NXT. This guy covers it all, my friends. I want you to go to his page, Good Mic Work on YouTube.
Check out Good Mic Work Commentaries on YouTube.
But we would have fun. We would run around. There would be a wooden hoop we would hit with a stick, and it would go down a hill.
I'm about to go and watch a few videos myself.
It's a very practical apparatus.
We're really lacking in the world right now with some people that have a freaking brain cell.
And then now look at him. He has more YouTube views and subscribers than I do, and I'm fine with it because I played such an integral role in his upbringing.
Don't you dare be sour.
We always talked about wrestling. He was a big Lou Thez guy, and of course I had an affectation for the Hackenschmidts.
Clap for Good Mic Work Commentaries.
This is RJ City, a wrestling rock on tour.
And feel the power.
Listen to the podcast, subscribe.
You are watching Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Just want to encourage all you guys to check out Good Mic Work Commentaries.
And if you don't, we're going to have a problem.
Do it!
Do it.
Do it now!
Thanks a lot for the encomium and the nice words about my father's Hall of Fame induction.
Hope our paths cross again sometime down the road. Would love to shake your hand again, and good luck on this podcast.
And you don't just watch it one time. You can rewatch every single one of them.
And now, Good Mic Work Commentaries and Greg Morgan presents the Winged Eagle Podcast.
It is Saturday once again here on the Good Mic Work Commentaries YouTube channel. Welcome everyone to your Winged Eagle podcast for August 28th, 2021. Pretty jam-packed episode. Things have been really busy in the wrestling world for the past few weeks, and it's only getting crazier, and more stuff's going down, and more big news is dropping. It's an exciting damn time, and one of the biggest and most anticipated, I think, pay-per-views in the last several years is coming up in just about a week. 1 week from tomorrow, actually. September 5th is All Out. We're going to talk a lot about that today, including the big news that dropped yesterday or last night, right around the time SmackDown was on, and that is that Daniel Bryan has pretty much been confirmed by Cassidy Haynes over at bodyslam.net to be debuting now at All Out instead of the rumored Arthur Ashe show in late September for Dynamite. Looks like they're pushing that up a bit. So we're going to talk a lot about Daniel Bryan today. We're also going to talk a lot about Adam Cole and where he might land, officially a free agent as of yesterday. We'll talk WWE's new hiring policy in terms of wrestling talent. No longer will they be scouting indie talent. They are going to focus on homegrown individuals. We will talk about the pros and cons of that. Also discuss that wacky new NXT logo. This ain't your daddy's NXT. It's very colorful, very crazy, and I don't exactly hate it, but it is very, very different than what we've known the black and gold brand to be. Also going to talk a little bit about Jim Ross, whose announced duties are going to be reduced in AEW. Also, they're going to start filming Dark at Universal Studios, which is interesting, former home of WCW and TNA. Braun Strowman's rumored to head over to Impact. We've got some news on Brock's return and why it was done this quickly, according to Meltzer anyway. We've got talk of the location for Royal Rumble 2022, which looks like there's a target location set for that. We've got John Cena appearing on Broken Skull Sessions after, or the night of, or day of, I should say, Extreme Rules. And last night's SmackDown and Rampage shows were okay, and we'll discuss a little bit about those as well. So that's kind of what's on the menu here today, although we're probably going to be getting into a lot more and branching off into a lot of different subjects as well. I expect this to be a 2-hour podcast. Hopefully it will be a lot of fun. Thank you to those that were already here hanging out in the chat. Can I be heard? Yeah, all right, I can be seen too. We look good there. How Weezy is here. Very happy to see How Weezy and Barry MK. So we got some monkey wrenches in here. Nick Musser's in the house as well, along with Charlie, Jet, Ham, David Brown, Nathan, Adam, Ben, Rock Intensity, Sonic, Plays, Domination Warrior, Wrestling, Michael Cubics, Ben Forbes. All right, small little group in the chat so far, but hopefully that will grow because it's a loaded episode, like I said. So we've got some scheduling stuff to get into as well. First, I want to let you guys know what to expect from me this weekend and next week and going forward in the fall, because we're inching ever so close to Labor Day and the end of the summer kind of season for me, and life should get a little bit more easier in terms of my other jobs and things like that, and being able to produce content for the channel. So we'll be getting into a little bit of that as well. Everybody who is here, do me a favor, smash the thumbs up button for me if you don't mind, and help me out with that. And make sure you subscribe if you're not yet already. Shoot me a follow over on Twitter, all that good stuff. Facebook page link is in the description below as well. Give a like to that, and I will have the audio to this podcast available a little bit later tonight. I'm not going to be able to push it out to the feed until I get home from work this evening, so it'll be a little bit around 10, 11 o'clock here, my time on the Pacific side of things. So if you want to listen to the audio or download the MP3 on my website, you'll just have to wait until late tonight, early tomorrow morning to be able to do so. So that should catch you up there in terms of this podcast. Also, I'm going to need your help today throughout the duration of this podcast. I want some suggestions for tomorrow's watch-along. I would like to do a watch-along. We've been doing that on non-pay-per-view Sundays, and I just realized, like last night, that I didn't even have one picked out. I have no idea what to do. So throw your suggestions in the chat as we go through. Try to make it something fun, a pay-per-view that everybody's familiar with and everybody will like. I'm trying to get some decent views here, so I don't want anything obscure or anything dumb. Just something that, everyone will enjoy. It can be from either promotion, a big pay-per-view, Royal Rumble, or maybe not a WrestleMania, but Royal Rumble or a Survivor Series, or maybe somebody pointed out an Unforgiven, or we just did a couple of SummerSlams, so maybe none of those. It can be WCW as well. Any major event, something that you think could get a lot of people watching, chatting, hanging out tomorrow night. Let me know your suggestions throughout the day here in the chat, and we'll try to select something before we wrap up the podcast here. And later on tonight, I will post the link and everything to tomorrow's watch along on the channel for you guys. Also, I want to let you guys know about my future plans starting Wednesday after All Out. There's a possibility I might even start this coming Wednesday, but I'm not sure what my work schedule is. But starting after All Out, I've made a decision to do something here on the channel on Wednesdays as it relates to Dynamite. I've tried to do Dynamite reviews in the past few weeks. Everybody and their mother is live after Dynamite on YouTube, and my numbers have been some of the worst my channel's ever really done whenever I do a Dynamite review. So it's not really worth it for me to do a Dynamite review. So what if I went back to how I used to do things back on Monday nights when I reacted to Monday Night Raw like every week, and we start reacting to Dynamites? I think I'm going to try to do that for the fall. We'll give it a couple of months. We'll see how it does. We'll see how the streams perform and whatnot. But I think I'm going to give that a shot starting after All Out. We're going to watch Dynamite together every Wednesday, and that might be a fun way to grow the channel, hang out with you guys, be able to talk wrestling without doing a full podcast type of thing. And I think that might be a fun thing to give a shot, this fall when I've got a little bit more time and I'll make myself available to be home on Wednesdays. It probably won't be every single Wednesday 100% of the time, but I would say definitely most Wednesdays I will be able to pull that off. So that is what I think we're going to try for the fall, so that might be fun. So keep that in mind. The target date for that is going to be, I guess, September 8th. We'll start that for the September 8th Dynamite, and if for any reason I'm available this coming Wednesday, we'll start it this week. I just don't know. I'm not going to know until like the end of the weekend what I'm doing next week in terms of my other job and whatnot. So keep that in mind. That's what we're going to try for Wednesdays. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And the only other little house cleaning tip I need to do is shoot over here to the Patreon page and shout out all of the current subscribers on Patreon. Thank you for your, many of you, years of support. I appreciate it very much. Alex Dredge, Alan Carter, Apron Bump Podcast, Barry MK, who of course is here, Blake Moran, Brandon Yelverton, Chris Miner, Claudio Clavadetcher, Daniel Rodriguez, Deshaun Robinson, Devlin Husband, Divine Ricks, Jay Smoove, Jimmy Anderson, JJ, John Riffle, John Rediford, Josiah Blevins, K-Dogs Kennel, Keith Salyers, Martin Can, Michael Cuomo, Naveed. We've got Nick Musser, Nikita Apalakin, Ryan Y, Scott Moss, and Super Fluffy Toaster. Thank you, as always, guys, for your support over there on the Patreon page. And you guys are the best. So that should wrap up all of the little tidbits of crap I have to get into before we start diving into the news. Like I said, I want to open up with Daniel Bryan, talk about all of the circle. Bryan Danielson. I need to start saying Bryan Danielson. I even think I have Daniel Bryan in the title of this video. That was stupid. I should have put Danielson. Just wasn't thinking it's going to take just a couple of weeks just to deprogram there. You know how it is. So we'll be talking about that first. Then we'll move on into Adam Cole and some of that crazy NXT news, like that logo and all that other nonsense. Super chat, I think, is rolling in here from Luigi Dara Gaming. Thanks for the $2. How about the first ECW one night stand? We did that one. It's on my channel right now. Check my watch along playlist. We've actually done a bunch. So I believe we did that in early or midsummer or something like that, in July or whenever that show was, June maybe, something like that. But we've done it. So that's already on there. Unforgiven 2001. We did talk about that on a previous podcast or previous watch along, and I really liked that option. I was kind of thinking that might come later in September. Like, I definitely want to do that one, but almost maybe in a couple of weeks, maybe in between All Out and Extreme Rules. Like, in between there is kind of where I had Unforgiven 01 pegged, because that would be right around the 20-year anniversary. But if we don't get any other better ideas, then, maybe we can shoot for that one tomorrow. But I think Boschko, that one is coming. But I'll go back and scroll back through periodically here throughout the podcast and see if there's any other cool ideas for these pay-per-views. And if I can't decide anything today, I'll go back and reread all these comments later and try to pick one. But these are all good. Extreme Rules 2012, SummerSlam 08, couple of ECWs, One Night Only 97, In Your House 16, Takeover Brooklyn, Starrcade 97. I'm not going to watch Over the Edge 99. Absolutely not. I'll never watch that one again. Fall Brawl 96. Oh, Fall Brawl might be good. Fall Brawl 96 and 97, I remember being pretty decent. 97 was the one with the Hennig turn that was in Winston-Salem, I think. Over the Edge 98. These are all good. So, yeah, we're going to maybe at the end of the podcast here, if we have a little bit of time, like we have 10 minutes left over, we're going to go a big scroll back here, look through a lot of these suggestions here, and see if we can't decide on something together. But we're probably going to wait until the end to do that. We got too much to get into other than what we're going to do for tomorrow's watch-along. But just keep that in mind for tomorrow. Watch-along, classic watch-along tomorrow. Monday night will be up after Raw for the review. And starting after All Out, we're going to be doing live watch-alongs of Dynamite every single Wednesday right here on the channel. Looking forward to that. Let's get into the news first. This one is a big one. Our friend Cassidy Haynes over at bodyslam.net dropped a big bomb last night during SmackDown. I was at work, so I was kind of eyeballing my phone, looking at Twitter a little bit, trying to gauge the reaction of SmackDown. Very curious what Becky Lynch was going to have to say. I thought for sure, I heard that Brock Lesnar was advertised for Friday, and then all of a sudden he was kind of just not there. And they went with the Balor and Roman thing instead. So that was kind of a bummer. I mean, I guess there's no really rush if they're going to book Roman Brock at Crown Jewel. then he doesn't necessarily have to be there right away. But, you'd think following SummerSlam, they'd want him there. And maybe just the early indication or the early report that he was going to be there helped, because they pulled in a hell of a rating last night, 2.8, nearly 3 million viewers or something like that. That's pretty good and pretty surprising. Becky Lynch tweeted out just right before we went live here, Rebecca ratings. And she is claiming that she's the reason for those ratings, and she's probably right, because she's the man. But anyway, we'll get into SmackDown later. Lots to get into first, like I said, with Daniel Bryan. So during SmackDown last night, Cassidy dropped the bomb over on bodyslam.net about Daniel Bryan's debut. And this is something that we speculated about just a week ago right here. We were talking about, of course, when Daniel Bryan can come in, when the best spot would be for him to come in. And we suggested that All Out isn't exactly that bad of a place. That's kind of where it should be. We've already seen Punk back. He dropped the big promo. He's there now. So his first match, yes, is probably going to be the main event. Yes, heavily featured and stuff like that. But I don't even think Daniel Bryan coming in would necessarily take away from that. I think it would add to it. It would make All Out super memorable. You know what I mean? And then maybe you can save Arthur Ashe for like a big title change. Like if you still want to do Kenny and Hangman, I don't know. That could be the venue for that, and that would also make that title change the focal point and the main attraction of the show without something else taking away from it. So we kind of already speculated that this would have been a good idea. Sounds like it's the deal now. I'm going to read you the report, or I'm going to paraphrase part of the report here from Cassidy from last night. It says here, I quote, "After speaking with multiple sources within AEW, I can now confirm that the company has upped plans for Bryan Danielson's debut. The new plan, I was told, is for Danielson to debut at All Out on September 5th. I had initially heard this rumor a couple of weeks back, but was able to confirm the plan with multiple sources. I was also told that the decision was made after concern continued to grow internally over COVID-19 as mandates and restrictions have tightened in New York. So unless they decide to push the debut even further to TNT, it looks as though Danielson's debut is a lock for Chicago." And goes on to plug AEW there as well, and talks about CM Punk's return to the ring. So where Danielson could show up, just him being planned to be there, is pretty cool. I'm not sure if AEW, kind of like the way they did with CM Punk, they didn't go out and publicly confirm this in any way, but they kind of allowed these rumors to get out, so to speak, to where the fans knew about it. I think they're probably happy that this has made the rounds now, because what this is going to do is going to sell pay-per-view buys. Because last time fans bought tickets to a show based on a rumor, they left happy. So now people purchasing a pay-per-view based on a rumor are probably going to leave happy. This is what we talked about last week. So I think this is actually a good thing. The fact that this is kind of leaked, hopefully they'll do the same thing they did with CM Punk, where they'll kind of wink and nod, but they're not going to really officially announce anything. They're just going to let it happen. And with a pay-per-view, the cool thing about that is you don't know when it's going to happen. It's not like a TV show where Daniel Bryan's going to open the show and cut a promo like Punk did. I think his debut will be something different. It could be even a run-in. It could be a challenge. After Kenny and Christian are done, Kenny's going to beat him, you know that, and Christian claims to be the best, outwork everyone, and Kenny can just get on the mic saying, hey, if you're the best, I guess I just beat the best. There's nobody else around, other than, knock CM Punk. But, if he's out there on the mic running his mouth a little bit, and then you have Danielson come out and confront him, I'd hate to take away from, what could be a potential title run in the future from Hangman, but damn, if you can do Kenny and Bryan Danielson right off the bat, holy shit, man. So he could come in, he could run in, he could just appear, he could make a challenge. There's no telling what he could do at All Out. We don't know. So I kind of hope they wind up keeping that a surprise, because now, based on these rumors, the fans are, probably going to believe this and have every reason to, that he's going to be there. Otherwise, you would think AEW and Daniel Bryan would come out themselves and say, I haven't signed, nothing's a deal, I'm not going to be there, or whatever. So I think that, and CM Punk, don't forget, basically confirmed that Bryan's coming in on Dynamite last week when he told the fans they have to be just a little bit more patient to wait for the yes chance and shit. So he's coming, and it sounds like it's going to be at All Out, and I actually really like that decision. I mean, All Out is looking stacked. I wrote down the card that we're going to discuss later, probably after we talk about Rampage, but we've got, 9 matches on this card. And I mean, hopefully they will put CM Punk and Darby Allin on the buy-in. so we can allow Paul White and QT Marshall to have the much-deserved main event spot. I mean, as long as they do that, this card is going to look really good. But when you look at these matches here, this fucking thing is stacked. I almost wish they were in the United Center for this. I mean, this is a big show, and apparently the arena they're in that they've ran All Out in previously in Chicago only holds about 10,000 people. I think they could put triple that easily into an arena if they had something bigger. So the only thing I may be disappointed about is this is not in a bigger venue, because they could easily sell out something like the United Center for a card like this. And now when you already look at the great matches we have here with Paul White and QT Marshall headlining, you add Daniel Bryan as a surprise in here. Holy shit, man. Like, this is going to be a great pay-per-view this year. Probably on paper, it's looking pretty good. Pac Andrade, we got the big final match between Jericho and MJF that could have, career implications for Jericho. Interesting match with Miro and Eddie that I think could be really fun. We're going to have a tag team classic for the titles. There's some good shit on this show. So I kind of wish they were in a bigger arena for something like this, especially with Daniel Bryan coming in. And how cool is it? And like I said, how rare. It's never happened before that somebody main evented a WrestleMania, and by September, they're working for the other company. That is crazy. That is absolutely crazy and just surreal when you kind of think about it. But really excited to see Daniel Bryan in AEW, what he does there, who he feuds with, and it's a great place for someone like him. He's had the concussion problems. He had to take 3 or 4 years off. This is a guy that does not need to be going balls to the wall in the ring. Not that WWE would really make him do that anyway, but a schedule like AEW is very, very attractive. It's limited dates. It's no-house shows. He's not going to be doing very many darks and elevations, you know what I mean? So he's going to be Dynamites, occasional Rampages, and pay-per-views. He's going to be allowed to work in Japan. He's going to have time at home with his family. Comparable money for a 10 times easier schedule and a lot more peace of mind, creative input, all of these things that he was given, apparently, according to Haynes, in his contract with AEW. So this is a better place for him in a lot of ways, because he's not going to be wasted. Sometimes I just wonder when WWE goes through these like continuous and repetitive rematches every week, I also look at that as like miles on these wrestlers' bodies, these meaningless matches that they're going out and bumping around every night and, risking injury for, when in the end, they don't mean anything. You don't remember anything, So, I mean, Daniel Bryan, even since he came back, even though he was always doing top shit, there was lots of just random matches he had on SmackDown, or tag team matches, or singles matches that turned into tag team matches, or impromptu matches, or rematches and shit like that happened that, that's just all jumbled and convoluted. You don't even really remember any specific points. Where in AEW, the shit he's going to do there is going to be memorable, and with a little bit of creative input, he's not going to want to do anything that doesn't make any sense. So I think he's going to do great things there. I'm really excited for that news. Somebody else who I'm hoping is going to join him is Adam Cole. It's still up in the air what he's going to do. He is a free agent officially as of yesterday, the 27th. Free to negotiate with anybody. A lot of people were even speculating that he could turn up on SmackDown last night, or even Rampage, although Rampage was taped a week ago, or last week after Dynamite. Or a couple days ago after Dynamite, I should say. So it's already been taped. Not that they couldn't insert a pre-tape or a pre-recorded thing to put on the show, but that would have had to happen awfully fast, because technically you can't even talk to the other side until you're a free agent. So they would have to come together, have a conversation, submit an agreement. Cole would have to agree on that. No sleeping on it, no examining the terms, no taking a couple of days. It would have to be done all in a matter of hours, then film a pre-tape to be inserted into Rampage by 8 p.m. or 10 p.m. or whatever fucking time it airs. So to me, that would have been just way too fast, and I wouldn't be debuting Adam Cole on a taped Rampage. So I saw no chance of that. But I did see a possibility of him maybe popping up on SmackDown, because he can have these conversations with WWE, and apparently did. The meeting with Vince McMahon reportedly went very well, and he did a pre-taped appearance for WWE even as late as Wednesday. And then on Friday, or yesterday I should say, he canceled his Twitch stream, claiming that something came up and then he'll be back in a couple of days. And then you had Britt Baker tweeting the picture of her doing the face thing, and then CM Punk responded with another picture, and, just little teases there. So a lot of people were wondering if he could maybe turn up on SmackDown last night. And even though I wasn't home to watch the show live, I was keeping my fingers crossed that was not going to happen. Please do not show up on SmackDown. I know that some people might think he might do fine in WWE. If he chooses to stay there, we will support him 1,000,000,000% over here. But as a wrestling fan, is this really where we want this guy? Especially after the news that we're going to talk about in just a little bit that Meltzer reported this week about WWE completely changing their roster building philosophy and their model to the point where now they're not even going to scout indie talent. They're no longer looking at that talent pool for wrestlers. They now want to bring in people that have a good look and teach them the WWE way. Wonderful. I wonder how that's going to work out. This is how Mason Ryans are born. And now you're going to have a whole fucking roster full of these people. It's like the WWE roster has turned into the Diva Search. It's exactly what it is. They're going to bring people in, see if they have a presence, a good look. If they're big, beefy, and handsome, or if they're pretty and whatever, they're going to say, all right, come on in. And if they got some sort of athletic ability, that would help. Now, not that this formula cannot create stars. It can create a gem or two, no doubt. But to make that your only way of building your roster, they're going to regret that. They're going to regret that because that's just something that's never been done. They've always had a little bit of that philosophy incorporated with some of their other stuff, and they went really heavy on the indie talent when NXT became a big brand and Triple H went out there signing everybody, but you don't want to rule out independent talent. How do you think fucking Mick Foley and shit, got a job? Chris Jericho and guys like that who, made a name for themselves. They built a brand. They built their name up and got word of mouth and got eyeballs on them, and people took notice and took attention and say, hey, let's bring that person in. That's how it's always gone. Now you're going to want to turn this, now you're turning this thing into just a talent competition to where you don't have anybody that, a lot of these people aren't going to ever really know much about wrestling. Maybe seen it as a kid, know who John Cena is or The Rock and guys like that. Maybe they watched it for a couple of years when they were little or whatever, but they're not going to be full-blown, full-fledged fans who love the business and just want to work their balls off for it. And I just don't think that's a very good recipe. Yes, that philosophy can birth a superstar, but when you're limiting yourself to just that and basically allowing AEW to have all of the indie talent, you are really robbing yourself of some great potential. I can understand cutting back on the indie talent. That actually makes sense. We're going to talk about the new NXT stuff in a minute, but cutting back on some of the indie talent, I get that, but just giving it all up and basically submitting to AEW. Okay, we had NXT as that brand that, had the wrestling with the indie talent that the Smarks will like or whatever you want to call it. AEW is now taking that away from us, so now we're going to completely change NXT as well. So with all of that, with these new edicts and with these new logos and this new philosophy for finding talent, what in the world would possess Adam Cole to want to stay in that environment? He needs to run and run and run. And run as fast as he can and just go over to AEW where things will just be a little bit more fun over there. And he's a guy, if he comes in right after a Daniel Bryan or with a Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson, think about that. I mean, and there's a possibility here within, I don't know, an 8 to 10 week span, maybe even less than that. We could theoretically get CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, Adam Cole, and Bray Wyatt all coming into the company in like 2 months. That's insane. That's a big injection of talent. And that's just an unbelievable step up for the roster in general if they were to do that. So I think all of the excitement in the fans' minds kind of leans towards Adam Cole. He's not letting on to anything. Even in his Twitch channel, apparently from what I heard, he calls himself something else. He doesn't even talk about wrestling, doesn't even associate his Twitch stream with wrestling, where a lot of other wrestlers who play games, they talk a lot and they discuss things in the chat and they do shit in there. They talk a lot about wrestling, and Cole does the exact opposite, which might have been why, he was able to, if he does stay with WWE, if he's saying to Vince, look, other than my face, it's just me playing video games. It should have nothing to do. If I was Adam Cole, I'd talk to a lawyer or something about this. So if he stays with WWE, clearly he's gotten that figured out. He's told Vince that I'm going to stream or I'm not going to work here, is what I'm assuming, because apparently it is very, very important to him. And it's important for a lot of wrestlers. I mean, it really upset, I think, a lot of people when we heard that they were kind of banning that, because you also have to take into account things like mental health, that's so much more prevalent now and stuff, and everybody kind of struggles with, and a lot of people struggle with. And a lot of these like streams really can help those people in a lot of ways. It helps me sometimes. So imagine if you have like a huge audience and this is something that you enjoy doing. It keeps you out of trouble, maybe in somebody like Paige's case, who's really gotten, into her streaming and she loves it. And it's become a very, very, very big part of their lives, instead of maybe some things in their lives that aren't so good for them. And now WWE is going to take that away. What a bunch of dicks. So I haven't seen anything new today in terms of where Adam Cole might go. Seemed like at one point people were thinking he might stick around in WWE. Now that's shifted a bit, and some are expecting him to leave. I know what I want him to do. That's obvious. I want him to go to AEW. I just don't think there's anything for him on Raw and SmackDown, and I don't trust those monkeys at all to do anything with Adam Cole based on their previous track record and the other problems Cole is going to face, one of those being his size and shit like that. So I think over in AEW is where he's got much more history, a lot more great matches to be had, because everybody in NXT, his run there was fantastic. There's nothing he's going to do on Raw or SmackDown in the ring or from a program perspective that's going to be better in NXT. Nothing. They will never be able to write him in any storylines better than some of that Undisputed Era shit, or even the Kyle O'Reilly shit, or any one of his various feuds while he was champion. They'll never be able to recreate that at all, and he might be able to knock out a good pay-per-view match or two or something if they give him one, but it's not going to have the same feel. The best work, I feel, he can do in AEW. So it just comes down to what's important to him. I would assume if I'm Adam Cole and something like my Twitch stream is very, very important to me, the company with no fucking house shows is very attractive. If I stay in WWE, they want me on the main roster, which means they want me on the road. If I go to AEW, I'm working Wednesdays, I'm working Fridays, and I'm working some Sundays. And every other time, I can kind of be at my house twitching. And I'm pretty sure Cole lives in Florida already, which is where AEW is. He wouldn't even probably have to relocate. Most likely, I'm not sure where he lives. I would just assume it's down there. So that's... And his woman, don't forget, Britt Baker is there as well. So to me, it's just like all signs are pointing for him to go there, but we won't know anything until he turns up somewhere. And hell, who knows? I mean, he might turn up on Raw. SmackDown, as we'll talk about later, apparently, USA was a little bit upset that Brock's over there now. Fox at one point was upset that WWE didn't make a play for CM Punk. So if you just put Becky and Brock on SmackDown basically on the same day, adding Adam Cole to that, feels like Cole should go to Raw. So we ain't out of the woods yet with Cole returning to WWE. If we can get past Monday without him turning up, then I'm very confident that he's going to AEW. I saw a lot of people a little bit overconfident. I'm like, don't forget, we still have Raw. Doesn't mean anything. A lot of people are like, he's going to AEW. I'm like, just hang on. Unless he announces something tomorrow or today, we still have to bite our nails a little bit on Monday night and make sure that he doesn't show up. He better not. I'm going to imagine that. This is how crazy the business is. I don't know what city Raw is in on Monday, but if he made his debut and the fans booed him, they would probably be booing his decision to come back to WWE. Like, no, we want to see you on AEW. So I'm really going to be a little nervous watching Raw on Monday all the way up until the end. He could show up in the main event. He could do something. So if we can get through Monday, I think he's elite after that. So, and then hell, he could be on Dynamite this Wednesday, or they can hold him off. They could hold him off to Arthur Ashe, and just come in there. But I think that one situation with a guy like Adam Cole, if you are in the very rare position in this day and age to have your contract just expire where you're a total free agent and you've got no compete, I think it would be more fun if you showed up on television as soon as possible. when it's still fresh, when we just saw you on the other show like a week ago, now you're on the competition. That's always really cool. It was cool back in the day in the Monday Night Wars. It would be cool now. Now, if it was a different situation or if you had a no compete or something like that, then, you'd be looking at that Arthur Ashe show. But if he's available and he agrees to come in, yes, I know there's a lot going on right now with a lot of guys coming in, Punk, Bryan, now you add Cole, all within a couple of weeks. I just think it would really add to their momentum. Their stock is rising, and little things like this is just giving them nudges higher to the upside. And, obviously there's going to be a dip, there's going to be a consolidation, all that kind of stuff, just like stocks and crypto and whatnot. But then, from there, hopefully it would be to the moon once that all happens. So this is all good stuff, all good stuff. So we'll watch Raw together. Hope that he doesn't, or we'll talk about Raw Monday night, but I'll be live tweeting Raw, so we will kind of watch Raw together. And we will just bite our nails and hope that he doesn't turn up there. And if he doesn't, I will feel very good about his future. So we shall see. And like I said earlier, when we were talking about Cole, Meltzer was the one that laid these claims down that, and kind of Nick Khan sort of confirmed this anyway, and kind of said much of the same thing in his interview with Ariel Helwani, that they're kind of going in a new direction with NXT, and no longer will they be really scouting indie talent and independent wrestlers, which I think is just so ludicrous. And it's like, I can kind of see both sides of it, sort of. I have no problem with them, trying to grow their own homegrown talent and create these big superstars, these comic book characters, that you would see in wrestling, previously and back in the day or whatnot. And a lot of indie wrestlers now these days, a lot of them are smaller, the Garganos, the Ciampas, and, WWE wound up bringing those in, and NXT honestly was meant to be their developmental brand. They made the Performance Center and the whole deal, but then when NXT started transitioning, when they started getting some traction, fans started appreciating the wrestling, they kind of morphed away from developmental and turned into a third brand, because now they were going out and hiring a lot of independent wrestlers. A lot of these independent wrestlers had a lot of experience. A lot of them were veterans. So now they're not coming in as developmental. They're coming in as people who are seasoned and ready. Yeah, they might have to learn the WWE style a little bit, but they've been working at this for many years, and they are already very good. So the NXT brand became more like a brand than a developmental. Well, then when AEW came around, I think they were there to take away a lot of that NXT takeover crowd. Remember those takeovers back in the day? They would sell out. Fans were just jacked for everything, appreciating the matches. We were so relieved, albeit under the same banner, that we did have an alternative to regular main roster WWE programming that even then was very repetitive, that we were complaining about week after week and had the most head-scratching booking and whatnot. And in NXT, it just was a little bit more grounded. Triple H was in charge. They cared more about the personalities, the characters, the storylines, the angles, and the matches in the ring, to where all of the fed-up wrestling fans that are so sick of just this nonsense on the main roster, we get something different now. It felt good, and we needed an alternative. And I even laughed at the time. I'm like, WWE created their own alternative. Well, now when AEW came around, it kind of changed things. Now AEW is kind of that alternative. That's where the fans want to turn to find, some of that good wrestling, and angles and storylines that are followed through with, paid off, shit like that, and just an overall different presentation of a wrestling show instead of the overproduced, colorful, shaky camera nonsense from WWE. AEW is now that. They went head-to-head with NXT and beat them, and NXT threw in the towel. That's essentially what they did, to where now they're just going to say, okay, we're not going to try to compete with you on the independent talent, because they're all friends with each other, and they're probably all going to want to go work with each other. And so now we're going to kind of go back to maybe what they had intended NXT to be all along, but kind of got away from that a little bit. So not that some indie talent wasn't coming in, Daniel Bryan and others, were part of that original NXT, but, overall, it feels like they are now doing with it what they always wanted to, and they've, and AEW has really, AEW and WWE themselves are both responsible for the death of NXT. I think NXT could have continued to compete if they did some things different and continue to have just as good of in-ring matches as you would find in AEW. But they basically quit and said, okay, you guys can have all the indie talent. We're done. We're just going to start growing our own shit, which is just fucking crazy. They're going to have little talent farms where they put seeds in the ground and wrestlers pop out of the ground. And then they just stick them in the ring with a couple of legends and teach them to work and hope for the best. And that's not always the best way because, think about if you're a pro sports team. What if you just decided that you're no longer going to scout collegiate athletes? You're no longer going to participate in the draft. You're no longer going to scout talent at all. You're just going to hold tryouts or look at headshots and find handsome dudes and teach them to play the sport. What if the Yankees tried that? Or any other winning pro sports teams, and then we're just say, oh, you look pretty good. Here's a soccer ball for your first time, touching it. Now, welcome to the major leagues. What the fuck? So I just think that it's not a good policy to limit yourself to that. I think they're going to regret that. And when there is somebody that's coming up and bubbling and has a name and is getting some traction and whatnot, for them to ignore it and just say, oh, well, let AEW have them. Okay. But, look at CM Punk. CM Punk just returned over there and was one of the biggest things we've seen in the last decade. He's been gone from wrestling for 7 years. That was a big idea. Where the fuck do you think he came from? How the hell do you think he even got signed? Because people heard who he was, making a name for himself on the independents, and you found yourself a gem. They made a star out of him, and there's lots of those stars still to be made. And now you're just going to give up, what a weird decision to make. So I think if you're WWE or a business or a wrestling company in general, you shouldn't limit yourself to anything. Incorporate everything. Do a little bit of that homegrown stuff, but mix it in with talent that's already seasoned, trained, and veterans that can maybe even help, some of these clueless talents that just decided they liked wrestling 3 weeks ago. If you can have a little mixture there, that might help, just balance out your stew a little bit, but if you're just putting these big, uncoordinated, untrained, non-wrestling fan soup bones in there and just mixing them all, like, what the fuck do you think that's going to produce? So I just don't know about any of that stuff. But anyway, what'd y'all think of the new NXT logo? WWE debuted that along with their new, I guess it's like their theme song performed by Wale. Didn't sound bad. Triple H has always been like a heavy metal guy, so, kind of going in the hip-hop direction here is a little strange, and it's a vast difference from what they were before. And most people, like, I saw the reaction. At first I was like, what the fuck is this? But a lot of people are like, it's not bad. It's very, very colorful. It reminds me of the 90s, like I said earlier. This ain't Joe Daddy's NXT. It's got that like kind of hot pink and colorful vibe that the 90s kind of had. And it's definitely different, and I'm kind of with everybody on it. It was shocking and jarring at first, but I don't hate it. And, when they're looking for a rebrand and to revamp, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to revamp. You don't want to do something just similar to what you did before. So out with the black and gold, in with the graffiti and the colorifications and all that stuff that's going on there. And we'll see. I don't hate the song or the logo. So we'll see how it looks going forward. If they're going to change up the CWC, I'm assuming they are. I really don't want them to change the name. I really like the Capitol Wrestling Center. That just touches my heart. But if they change the way it looks, because right now NXT still has that dark vibe. It's still dark. It's still black everywhere. So it might be brightened up. It might be a little bit more brighter of a presentation, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see that whenever the next live show or non-taped show is. I think they might have taped a couple of weeks here, so we might not see that full change quite yet. But when we do, we'll see. And let's at least give it a chance. I mean, it's sad to say, but NXT is kind of become a casualty for this channel as well, just based on the fact that that's now on Tuesdays and my video schedule and everything. I'm kind of taking Tuesdays off. I mean, I might look at NXT, but we're not going to discuss it very much here on the podcast anymore, just because it doesn't really fit into anything we're doing. When we do the watch-alongs on Wednesdays for Dynamite starting after All Out, we'll have some time maybe to touch on NXT in that. But other than that, I'm probably not paying too much attention to it, except for when this new logo and new branding officially begins. I'm going to want to take a look at that and come up here and comment on the show about it. But, otherwise, it's like, it's sad, a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, NXT was my favorite brand in all of wrestling. Now it feels like it doesn't even exist. How weird is that? That's scary. So, Anywho, that's the latest with WWE's new policy and the NXT and all that nonsense. Before we get into the next piece of news regarding Jim Ross, let me go up here and just knock out any super chats that have come through. I think there's been a couple. Another one from Luigi DeRaw earlier. Thank you very much for $5 more from you. I think Bryan will be the first WWE guy who won't be bitter. He won't be bitter, and he doesn't have a reason to be. Daniel Bryan was treated very well in WWE. And plus he's just not that type of dude. I think you're going to see a completely different Daniel Bryan, a respectful Daniel Bryan. I wouldn't even be surprised if he showed WWE a little bit of love in his first promo. He might even say, I'm not out here to be bitter. I loved my time there, but I wanted to come back to real wrestling. I wanted to work in Japan. I've been sitting over there watching all of this great talent here, and I'm a veteran, and I don't have many years left, and I really want to get an opportunity to work with all these guys, and I knew the only way I was going to do that and be able to do that is to come here and work here myself. Because he's a guy that's going to go into the WWE Hall of Fame. I am certain that while WWE is not thrilled with him going over to AEW, they have maintained a professional relationship because that's how Daniel Bryan is. And when it comes to WWE, they can't really be bitter. He's making a personal decision. Remember those? Remember when we're allowed to make those? Just like CM Punk kind of said in his promo, hey, if any personal decisions I made frustrated you, sorry. I understand, but hello, it's my life. I had to do this, same thing with Daniel Bryan. So WWE needs to look at his situation as well and understand, that, yeah, he can work a much lighter schedule over there. He can be creatively fulfilled and satisfied. He can work in Japan. He can do all of these things that WWE apparently weren't willing to cave in on, which is why he's there. So, I think his promos and everything there will be really respectful. I fully expect him to say something about wanting to participate in real professional wrestling again, but I'm not going to consider that a knock on WWE. A lot of people, including the fans, feel that way. So he's not going to be overstepping any lines if he says something like that. But in terms of him trashing WWE, I don't see it. Don't see it at all. Spaz is here. What's up, dude? Go subscribe to Spaz Phoenix's YouTube channel for me and show him some love. Thank you for the $10 Canadian. Got a commentary out right now on the top 5 headline-making names of SummerSlam weekend, along with a review of last night's Dynamite. Come hang out, y'all. Big love to Greg in the chat. R.I.P. NXT. I know, man. We'll go check out Spaz's top 5 over there, see what that's all about, and thanks for being here, man. Aloha to Devlin Husband is in the house. Good to see you, man. Fruity Pebbles NXT. Yeah, it kind of is, isn't it? We got $5 in here from Steven Scott. Thanks, dude. Good mic work. Do you watch the Boston Wrestling podcast? Did you hear about the beef between Tony Atlas and Dan Murata? No, I don't watch the Boston Wrestling podcast. I think they follow me, but I didn't even hear about any sort of beef. What's Tony Atlas got a problem with? What's up, Neil? Good to see you as well. And Sandy and Jose. Anybody else I missed in the shout-outs, I apologize. Trey, I see you up there as well. And Jason Meadows. John Gorman, thanks for the $5. What do you make of Booker T's comments about CM Punk? I also find it weird of fans being mad at AEW or WWE taking shots at each other. Yeah, that was going around this week, which I commented on. CM Punk, I think it was kind of related to CM Punk because, of course, fans, you talked about WWE. I'm like, I don't think, they just don't get it. It's so hard to kind of argue with this type of shit because they have no fucking clue what it even means to take shots at the other company. Like that, is something I would completely expect. I would be disappointed if CM Punk didn't say anything. I'd be like, what? After all that shit, he's not even going to fucking throw a little shade at those assholes? I would want him to. I expect him to, and I'd be pissed if he didn't. Now, the only thing I have always wanted to try to refrain from is having, if CM Punk's entire 15-minute promo was just WWE, and he's harping on shit, and he's obsessing on shit, and he's venting and ranting and sounds bitter, that's one thing. But he didn't even come close to that. Not even close. He had to talk about at least a little bit of that and all of the hell that he went through. That system, the way they operate, broke him. It broke him and made him have to leave for 7 years. He deserves, and don't forget, they almost killed him with a couple of fucking medical botches. So in my mind, he deserves any shot he ever takes at the company. The only thing that has ever gotten under my skin in the past with companies taking shots at the other is when they became overly obsessed. I thought at WCW were dirtbags for the way they were giving away the results. They were so mean-spirited, and their goal was to put WWE out of business. If that's your goal, that's obsessive. That qualifies and is the definition of obsession. TNA, same thing. Everybody that got signed from WWE, they were putting right in the world title situation, putting belts on them, giving them massive pushes at the expense of a lot of their other talent that was already there, working hard, wrestling hard, kind of pushed aside to where TNA looked like they were trying to become a minor league WWE instead of what they should have been, competition to WWE, alternative to WWE. And here AEW is, aside from, the few shots they take at WWE, those are all in good fun. It's not obsessive. You fans don't know what obsessive is. WCW insulted their competition in their own goddamn slogan. What do you think where the big boys play meant? What do you think that meant? It was a direct shot at WWE. When Lex Luger got over there, I'm sick and tired of playing with little kids, was one of the first things he said on the microphone. They viewed WWE as kiddie product bullshit. This is where the big boys play. It was in their slogan. So if AEW, if Cody busts up a throne or CM Punk says, I'm so glad to be out of that fucking hellhole. And we talked about this a couple of weeks too. I can relate. I've been away from my job on the East Coast. I've been living here in San Diego now for 11 years and have the best job of my life. Dream job. Cushy schedule. It's the best. Zero stress. No real true bosses. I've got technically 2 bosses, but I'm pretty much my own supervisor. They leave me alone, and I can work and make my own schedule and do whatever I want. I am still bitter at my last job for some of the things that I was put through, and I've had 11 years of peace. And sometimes when I think about it, I get a little annoyed that I was treated the way I was. And even though I still liked my time there, I was there like 10 years. I made a lot of friends there, met my best friend there, made a lot of lifelong relationships in terms of people that I've known and friends and whatnot. And as much as I couldn't stand my old boss, he was a mentor to me in a lot of ways. But at the same time, he also mind-fucked me a lot. And it was a really tough, stressful, demanding job that wasn't worth the money I was paying and was doing more damage to my mental health than anything else. When I think back to that now, I'm still a little bit pissed about it, that I let myself be put in that position, and I wasn't abused or anything. It just wasn't good for me. And, it wasn't until I got here and got to cleanse, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so at peace now. But still, if I'm a wrestler, if I'm in the position to cut a promo anywhere, I'm probably going to take a couple of shots at my former employer for the way I was treated. That's just natural. So, it's not going to become the focal point of CM Punk's character or the focal point of any motivation he has in any programs or feuds that he works. It's not going to be just centered around his disdain for WWE. He's got to fucking say something. He has to. And Booker T is a moron. No, I'm kidding. I love Booker T. It's just he has really bad takes all the time. And this is the type of stuff that I expect from fans with no wrestling knowledge in their brains prior to 2003 that think they know it all and speak facts. That's the type of shit I expect from them. Not from Booker, who's a smart guy, a veteran wrestler, who I would trust to train me to become a wrestler, and he thinks that because CM Punk mentioned a couple little things about WWE, didn't even say them by name, that he struck out in his promo. Okay, that's an opinion. It's a bad one, and it's an untrue opinion, because if you look at that as anything other than a home run, something's mentally wrong with you, son. That was a knock it out of the park, grand slam fucking home run in Game 7 of the World Series is what that CM Punk return was. To think anything other is obviously you just kind of towing that company line, which is fine. It's just a bad take and incorrect. So I think all of the chatter this week about that on social media generally comes from fans that just that have the fucking memory of a gerbil. They don't have any concept at all whatsoever of what battling, competing wrestling companies will do to each other. And everything that AEW has said or that WWE has said back has been relatively minimal in the grand scheme of things. So for fans on either side, because they're both wrong here. If WWE fans are mad at AEW for taking shots and AEW fans are mad at WWE for taking shots, you're both dumb and you're both wrong. Let them do it. It's fun. As long as it doesn't tread into the into obsessiveness, which we did see with WCW and we did see with TNA, and I see no evidence of that happening at all in AEW. AEW doesn't want to take down the WWE. They want to compete with WWE. Completely different philosophy that WCW had. Where TNA seemed like they were, just like little brother, kind of just constantly tugging on them, begging for a crumb, a drop of attention. And WWE didn't give it to them, and they just acted more obnoxious. They were way more discombobulated behind the scenes, revolving door of Panda Energy and Dixie and Jarrett's, and and everything was just a fucking mess, and bringing in people and wrong creative and Vince Russo, and just everything just sucked. It amazes me they even had a decent run at all in that company, which with as fucked up as everything was. And they were so concerned with WWE that I think it really harmed them when they're bringing in the Hogans and the Bischoffs, and they're letting that stuff infiltrate and destroy their company and killing everything that made the fans love it to begin with. I don't see anything like that taking place in AEW, and anybody who does think that's happening doesn't know their ass from their elbow, period. And they don't know shit about wrestling, even though they probably claim to know a lot. Disingenuous, I believe, is the word we're looking for there. And there's a lot of that going on in the wrestling community. Pretty decent audience, but not the best amount of likes. Can you guys do me a favor? Smash the thumbs up button for me. Help out the channel. It really helps. If you can smash Mr. Like button, I'd appreciate it. So that, I guess, wraps it up for all my WWE news, indie news, Bryan news, Cole news, my thoughts, my opinions, my ranting, whatnot. Let's move on to another piece of AEW news regarding Jim Ross. Now, it was announced today, again, by BodySlam.net. Cassidy Haynes posted a report, and I'm going to quote and read this report to you, and then we'll talk about it. So, regarding Jim Ross, it says here, Jim Ross has been with AEW since the beginning. Initially, Ross signed into the company with a 3-year contract, as he told DAZN, D-A-Z-N, in an interview back in May of 2019. His AEW contract is set to expire in April of 2022, and it sounds like JR's role on AEW TV is about to change. According to a report from Ringside News, which I was able to privately confirm with my sources within AEW as well, Jim Ross's current role as a full-time announcer on AEW TV is about to change. JR is set to transition out of the position as an announcer and member of the commentary team on a full-time basis. The report added that Ross will still announce some of the company's big matches and major events, but AEW is planning on using him in other capacities. Ross will transition to a role that will see him do more backstage segments like the sit-down interviews that he has done for AEW in the past. He isn't stepping away from the announce table completely, but is leaving the role on a full-time basis. Thoughts on that? I think this is a good idea. Jim Ross, I still think, has value and has stuff to offer, and I think a lot like Chris Jericho was a good person to kind of put in front to get AEW rolling. Some familiar faces, some familiar voices, but Ross and Jericho are very similar at the respective roles. Jericho is still Jericho, but his age is showing. It's not his fault. He's 50, he's 51 or whatever he is. And he should be extremely proud of how he is held up in the ring. I mean, just a couple of years ago, he had a Match of the Year candidate with Kenny Omega. His match with Naito was amazing in Japan. He could still get it done all the way up until a couple of years ago, but it's starting to get to the point where, he's really starting to slow down, much like Jim Ross is on commentary. He has a lot of missteps, a lot of goofs, kind of botches here and there. And again, none of that is Jim Ross's fault. Wait until you get his age. Give yourself a couple of bouts of Bell's palsy and put yourself in your mid-60s. See if you can get out a fucking sentence. It ain't easy. He still does his job very, very well, but I think as fans, we can all agree that it might be time for him to take a lesser role now that AEW is off and running. I don't think he needs to be replaced necessarily. I think they have enough announcers there to be fine. I've seen Mauro Ranallo's name tossed around. Now, if you add Mauro to AEW, that would just be insanity. I almost think like I wouldn't want him there, as crazy as that sounds, but I mean, because he's so fucking nuts. But man, he could add a lot. Maybe not Mauro on every Dynamite and every Rampage. Mauro in doses, perhaps. He'd be great there. But again, I think the announcers that they have, Excalibur's not everybody's favorite, but he knows his shit and he knows how to educate and inform the fans, and he does a good job of that. And I think when you still have Shivani, who's still got a little bit more mental faculties together than maybe JR does, and, maybe adding some other guys here and there. Jericho is probably going to be there a lot more. You still got Taz. I think in the long run, this is for the best because AEW does focus a lot more on storylines and things like that, and, you know, big long-term issues. And I love Jim Ross in that role where he's backstage doing sit-down interviews. He's always done that. He's been really good in that role. So if he limits his duties, maybe announces some pay-per-views, maybe some big matches, you know, maybe there's a wrestler that requests Jim Ross to call their match. I would just like him to call my match. You know, he can come in and do work a pay-per-view, work half of a pay-per-view, work an occasional Dynamite as a sit-in guest, and then continue to do some of the backstage stuff and still be around. I think that's the best. Now, his contract is coming up in April of 2022, so we'll see if he's okay with taking this step down, or if he might want to just end his run in TNA, or I'm sorry, in AEW, excuse me. But I kind of hope he sticks around in this role. I think that's a great place for Jim Ross to be, just given, you know, his age and where he is and everything, just to do a lot of sit-down interviews and the occasional announcing, and we'd still get to see him in doses instead of, you know, every week where he tends to draw a decent and fair amount of criticism nearly every week. So as much as I hate to say it, as much as I love Jim Ross, this is probably for the best overall, but I don't at all want to see Jim Ross leave AEW or turn back on WWE just so they can mistreat him for signing with AEW, but just maybe still being there in that capacity and signing a new deal next year, you know, probably for a lot less money, but also something that's maybe a little bit better for his personal schedule, health, and life. You know what I mean? So I'm in favor of this. Who knows how they'll juggle the announced tables around on Dynamite and Rampage, but it would be nice if they were able to eventually get some stability there. Well, I guess they already kind of have that. Shivani and Excalibur and JR have been doing the Dynamites. But if JR is going to kind of be phased out, I don't want to see them do what WWE does and constantly juggle the teams where they're constantly changing shit left and right. Oh, these guys are over here, 2-man booth here, 4-man booth here. No, we'll move him over here. Now we'll have, then at one time they had Corey Graves on both shows, didn't they? Or was it Cole? They had one of them on both shows, which was ridiculous. So don't do that. Try to get something that the fans like. And once they do, keep it stable and don't change it up too much. But if Ronaldo comes in, my God. Exactly. Tom Phillips is out there as well. Would love to see him come in. He was very good. I always thought he had shit to offer. So if they bring him in or Mauro Ronaldo in, those are two really great announcers that technically are just out there as free agents right now. Either one can be swayed. And in terms of some of the things we've seen and heard about with Mauro Ronaldo, you know, some of the, you know, the mental health struggles that he suffers from and things like that, I would think that AEW would be a pretty good environment there, and would not give him too much pressure or whatever, but you never know. We'll have to see. Yeah, I don't know if he's getting death threats from the crazies. That's just a shame. But yeah, I think it's probably about time for JR to think about doing something else. I think it is all for the best, because fans are brutal and they're ruthless and they're dickheads, and they don't show legends the caliber of Jim Ross nearly as much respect as they should, because they don't have any fucking memory of wrestling history or thought about it at all. They just are angry and they vent and they say controversial takes, and it's just really bad. And it's mean-spirited, and it's rude to Jim Ross. He doesn't deserve that. But I think this news is probably good for the long run, And same thing with Chris Jericho. I mean, depending on what happens at All Out, he might be taking a step back from the ring as well. I still think he'll find his way back in there at some point if he loses, but, he could also be, stepping away. That's why I kind of compare the two a little bit, because they both were kind of used to help get AEW off and running, but at the same time, they had a very small window and, kind of showing their age right at the start there. So kind of phasing them out and, letting the train kind of run on its own is kind of what's happening here. And I think the train's running just fine. They've been doing amazing business. Anyway, there's also some news about AEW, which I found interesting. Apparently, they have struck a deal with Universal Studios down in Orlando, and that's where they're going to tape AEW Dark, or at least most Darks. Now, Dave Meltzer and Andrew Zarian both reported this, that Dark will be taped most weeks at Universal Studios. Rampage will be taped some weeks after Dynamite and some live. So like we saw this week, on Wednesday in Milwaukee, after the show, they taped Rampage. That's probably going to be what's going to happen most weeks, with the occasional live Rampage. It'd be cool if they did live rampages on like pay-per-view weekends, that might be fun. So that's going to be the deal going forward, putting Dark and Elevation will be taped before Dynamite, excuse me. So Dark Elevation will be taped before Dynamite, Rampage will be taped after Dynamite, and AEW Dark will be taped at Universal Studios going forward. Now, this is the former home of TNA. This is the Impact Zone. And I saw a lot of fans criticizing AEW for this because this is kind of open to the public. You can just kind of walk in. It's like a ride. WCW did this back in the day as well. And I remember watching in the 90s, I couldn't stand that setup. It had that tiny little sound stage with that rotating ring. I mean, you're looking back now, it fills me with a lot of nostalgia. But at the time, I didn't like it. I'm like, what is this rinky-dink shit? This fucking spinning ring, this looks ridiculous. This crowd is not even, I don't even know what's going on. And at the time, I didn't know they were just, they probably weren't even wrestling fans. They're just people that went in, and got in for free. So apparently this is going to be the situation for Dark. But what people don't have to understand who are criticizing this, those fans, made fun of the Impact Zone back in the day because there weren't real wrestling fans in there. This isn't where AEW is doing their primary TV show tapings. This is Dark. A situation like this is probably good in terms of them just being able to have a consistent place to run and produce TV and for talent to get reps. And I think a lot of this, Dark might kind of operate a lot as like their NXT or their developmental or their training ground. Smaller venue, not a big audience. Dark still airs on YouTube, correct? So it's not like millions of people are watching this, and you can get some of this younger, more inexperienced talent, a little bit of reps in front of an audience. And it would also give you a different look, because now you've got several different, you got different looks. You got Dynamite, which kind of changes every week. Rampage will be taped some, but now you got Dark in a completely different looking atmosphere. I've never been a fan of wrestling at Universal Studios, but for your D show or C show or whatever Dark is that just airs on YouTube, that generally features a lot of your younger talent or less featured talent on your big shows or pay-per-views, I really don't see a problem with that. So I saw a lot of people laughing and comparing this to the Impact Zone. It's not. Dynamite isn't going in Universal Studios. If Dynamite was going in there, then we would have a problem. It's not Dynamite. It's fucking Dark. So what's wrong with that? I think that's good. It gives them a different venue, a different atmosphere, a different look, vibe of the show. It features some younger talent. And I think that this is just an interesting kind of development here. Now, hopefully this won't ever grow or morph into, them producing all their TV here. I don't think it is. I think they're going to travel and go to arenas and sell out, buildings and things like that. But in terms of a show like this, you can kind of station a whole crew down there and even a lot of that talent and use them there, and they can be, funneled in and out of Dark. And I think that's, it's kind of an interesting idea. We'll see how it goes. And as long as it's not their main show, I don't really see that much of a problem with it, and I find it somewhat interesting. So we'll see how Dark goes in the future. I don't really watch Dark, so that's another reason why this doesn't bother me too much, is because I don't watch Dark as it is. I try to a little bit every now and then. I'll check out a few YouTube clips, but for the most part, I'm not paying a ton of attention to the Dark results. And I don't think anything will change when they go into Universal. So now we got WWE and AEW hanging around Orlando. Very interesting. Might be really easy for people to jump ship if they're that close together. Braun Strowman could be heading to Impact Wrestling, who apparently drew a 0 rating for their last show or something, so I don't know why he's going there. But Scott D'Amore teased on a Twitch stream about Strowman maybe going there, and also Braun Strowman tweeted. I was able to see the tweet even though he blocked me. He tweeted some sort of sentence with the phrase "make an impact" in there. So some people are speculating that he might turn up on Impact. I think that would be interesting if he did, because he could probably cross over to AEW a little bit if he wound up doing that. But I could also see him going to WWE. Not, I don't really know if I care where he goes. I don't even care where he lands. I feel like it could be good and bad on both. So we'll see where he turns up. But you would think it's going to be pretty close to where we're going to see him. He's too big of a star just to lay dormant forever. Also some news on Brock Lesnar's return. Meltzer was reporting this week as well that which is what we speculated on, that Brock's return at SummerSlam was basically a reaction to WWE or to AEW signing CM Punk. And apparently Fox was even upset that WWE didn't make a play on CM Punk or didn't make him an offer or try to get him, when Fox probably doesn't understand the situation and that Punk is probably not going to want anything to do with WWE. But Punk already did have that deal with Fox when he came in to work the backstage shows. So I hope we never get to that point. I don't think we ever will. I don't think it works that way. But shit, what if the network who's paying this company $1 billion wants to sign somebody that WWE doesn't? Maybe the network's like, all right, what if we foot the bill? We'll pay CM Punk to wrestle on your show. I hope it never gets to that point where we've got a WWE wrestler who's actually being paid by somebody else. That would be fucking nuts. But Fox, whenever these networks get butthurt at WWE, I laugh. I'm like, you're the idiots that gave them $1 billion. You're just now realizing that they might disappoint you every now and then. Welcome to being a fan, Fox. So I just think that's so funny that Fox and USA are always bitching about something when they're the morons that gave this company $1 billion each to run their programming. No wonder you're pissed. So anyway, Brock apparently coming in was kind of done to counteract or combat the CM Punk news a little bit, and to kind of ensure, I'm guessing, to make sure Brock doesn't go over there. Because if Brock is free to go wherever he wants, what if Tony Khan was like, hey, Dad, can I have like 30 mil? And then Dad's like, yeah, sure, all 20's okay. Here you go. I'm going to go buy Brock Lesnar. Be right back. So maybe WWE just wanted to make sure that, he wasn't going to jump over there, and to maybe, cool off the buzz of CM Punk returning with a Brock return. Although Brock coming back, I was there. I was at SummerSlam. We popped. It was awesome. But nobody didn't expect Brock to return at some point. We knew he was coming back. Maybe SummerSlam was a little sooner than we thought, but he was coming back. He's going to have that program with Roman Reigns. That's got to happen. I've said the minute Roman Reigns turned up last year and started this head of the table bullshit, I'm like, if he doesn't put Brock down, then this is all for nothing. He has got to be the new man. He's got to be the new Brock that brings that big fight feel. And he's done a great job. He's been undefeated for a year. He's needed a lot of help to win some of these matches, but he's still been a pretty badass champion. Looked very dominant at WrestleMania this year as well. And eventually, when you do the showdown with Roman and Brock, that's a match that Roman must win. Brock owned him previously. This has got to be Roman's time and all of that. So we expected Brock to come back. It just felt like there's too much money to be made there. So even though it was a big shock and awesome to see him, I don't know if it really necessarily took away from CM Punk as much as they were hoping it would, because, I wasn't that shocked to see him. I'm like, oh, there's Brock. Figured he'd be back, kind of thing. And also, holy shit, Brock's back and he's confronting Roman Reigns, which we'll talk about here in a minute when we get into SmackDown, where Paul Heyman might fit into this and some of the teases they gave us last night regarding that. Also, there's a front runner for Royal Rumble 2022 this year in January. Looks like it's going to be St. Louis. So I'm assuming do the Cardinals play outdoors? Don't they play outdoors? So it's probably not at a baseball stadium. If it's going to be St. Louis, it's probably going to be at, the Kiel Center or whatever is there now, I'm assuming. So it looks like Royal Rumble 22 is in the lead to be landing in Missouri. Would love to get a Rumble here in San Diego at Petco Park. I think the January weather would be doable. I think the January weather here would be slightly warmer than WrestleMania weather in New York. Might be a bit chilly, might even have to heat the ring posts, but could also be, because when the sun goes down, it gets a little cold, but it could also not be that bad. I'd say, 50s, maybe even if you're lucky, low 60s or something. I don't know, but probably would be a low 50s type of deal in January, but would love to get one at Petco. That would be awesome. It's probably the only show that we could even get at Petco. WrestleMania wouldn't work. SummerSlam probably would work, actually, if they wanted to do it. Or actually, no, it wouldn't, because baseball. But looks like Missouri is getting Royal Rumble. We'll see how that goes. And the last piece of wrestling news I have to get into before we jump into SmackDown is that Peacock has John Cena on Broken Skull Sessions listed on their September schedule. They've got September 26th as the date for that, as of right now anyway, and that's the night of Extreme Rules. So Cena will be available on Broken Skull Sessions on the 26th. I would love to know where that Lex Luger Icons doc is that was supposed to be released on July 4th. We haven't gotten it yet. I don't know if WWE feels like giving us that. I kind of would like to watch it. These assholes better not wait until next year on July 4th. Give me that now, and I'm ready to see it. I was looking forward to that. I was all set to do a review on it and everything, and then they pulled the fucking episode with no explanation, and now nearly 2 months have gone by, and they haven't put it up yet. So I would like to get that, if you know what I mean. Transferring, I'm sure Punk is going to be on Rampage. Maybe not every Rampage. He was on last night with Christian after the show. Christian and Punk sent the crowd home happy, which I think we'll talk about here in a minute. And they did run a little pre-tape video package recapping the CM Punk return and stuff last night as well. But you got to remember, Rampage is a B show. Rampage is going to be taped most weeks, and it's only an hour. So they're having matches in Milwaukee. The crowd was so damn dead. They weren't even that hot for Dynamite, and they weren't really bringing it for Rampage either. So occasionally they'll have some good matches. Like there was a match with a pretty big stipulation at stake with Lucha Brothers and Jurassic Express last night, and the Miro stuff was good, and we had a fun main event tag that featured your world champion. So they're starting off pretty good, and they're having matches worth watching on there. We'll have to see if that decreases or whatnot in the upcoming weeks. And I have not caught any rating for Rampage. Haven't seen it. Don't know if it's out. But I do have the SmackDown rating, like I said, which I believe was a 2.8 or maybe even close to 3 million. There was a couple different numbers floating around, so I didn't write down one specifically, but it seems to be pretty damn good, prompting Becky Lynch to tweet out Rebecca ratings. So we're happy for her. It's probably on a WWE hard drive and they forgot about it. It probably is. Hey, Population 420, good to see you back, man. How are you? I thought Brock was going to be on SmackDown yesterday as well. I even tweeted earlier on in the day during the Adam Cole speculation. I was like, I don't feel Adam Cole tonight on SmackDown. I don't feel him on either show. He'd have to put a contract together way too fast in AEW to stick something in, a pre-tape into Rampage last night. And if he shows up on SmackDown, you've already got Becky coming back and Brock. It feels like, his debut on the main roster will kind of be meaningless. But I think Monday is a huge day. Monday's a very big day. Hopefully we can get through Raw with him not showing up. And if we can get on the other side of Monday Night Raw with no Adam Cole, I'm pretty confident he'll be going all elite. But if he's decided to stay with WWE, I think he might be on Raw, not SmackDown, because SmackDown just got a big talent boost with Brock and Becky. So you can't put everybody over there. I think Cole will head to Raw if he stays. That's my opinion. I think a lot of people think he might be on SmackDown because the meeting with Vince happened on SmackDown, but that doesn't mean he's going to be on that show. It just means it's a meeting with Vince. So I think Raw is just as likely as a home for Cole as SmackDown is. Speaking of SmackDown, that aired last night. We're not going to run through the whole show, just a few tidbits here and a couple of funny things that went down as well. But Becky Lynch opened the show, of course, and we were all curious as to what her response or her explanation was going to be for what she did at SummerSlam, showing up, cheap-shotting Bianca Belair, and beating her for the title. She's kind of making the slow transition into the heel turn. She was getting cheered a lot, but then when she brought up what she did at SummerSlam to Bianca, she was booed. And she said she doesn't regret it and she would do it again and whatnot. And then Bianca Belair comes out and interrupts. We knew that was going to happen. And here's my one big critique in this is that Bianca got done wrong at SummerSlam. She was trying to be respectful. She was even happy to see Becky back, because she's a fun-loving girl, and she's a good champion. She's a babyface. And so when she's trying to show Becky respect and Becky pops her and just beats her in a cheap way for the title, Bianca is not a pushover. Bianca is a strong woman, who could probably whoop my ass, and I'm slightly scared of. And she's not somebody that I would want to cross, And so when she comes out, and this is just WWE, it's not her fault. It's just WWE. It's the way they want things done, because every show has to show every entrance and every mannerism and every routine and everything that the wrestlers have to do. They have to do every fucking week. That's why I say you don't see a Rey Mysterio match without a 619. It just happens in every match. Everybody has to see it. So when Becky is out there talking, if I'm Bianca, would it kill WWE just to be a little bit real sometimes? If I'm Bianca, and apparently the reports are this storyline is kind of designed to help transition into a new phase of Bianca Belair, tap into a different, more angrier part of her character, and eventually she will probably defeat Becky Lynch for the title. That's what I'm assuming anyway. But when she got screwed over at SummerSlam and she comes out and she's twirling and bouncing the hair and the music, and she's literally bouncing and smiling to the ring, I'm like, shouldn't you be a little bit more pissed off? If anything, if I was Bianca, I would power walk to the ring pissed off with no music as Becky Lynch is talking. Don't wait for a pause so you can cue the music. While Becky Lynch is mid-sentence, have her just stomp her way down to the ring, grab a microphone, get in the ring. Girl, me and you right now for that. You fucked me over. It doesn't work. I don't play that way. You're giving me a title shot right now. That was unfair. Adam Pearce, Sonya Deville, get out here right now. Us, I deserve it. This was wrong. This is bullshit. I'll be more than happy to have a championship match with you, but it needs to be one-on-one where you don't cheap shot me, and then see how good you are. I want that match right now. I'm not leaving until I get it, type of thing. Where was that, Bianca? But WWE doesn't see things like that. She seems way too happy to have lost the title. And she even says, she goes, she winds up laying down a challenge to Becky right there. I want to challenge you for the title. And Becky says, basically, it doesn't even have a chance to say no. And she's interrupted by 3 other women, Carmella, Zelina Vega, who I don't think's ever won a match, and Liv Morgan. All 3 of them want shots at the title too. And Bianca, thank God, gets on the mic and goes, this has nothing to do with y'all. Y'all suck. Get the fuck out of here. This is between me and the man. I don't know what any of you are doing here. And she goes, this is between me and Becky. I want a shot at that title. And Becky just says no, and she leaves. So Bianca doesn't get what she wants. Instead, she gets a fatal 4-way match. She's got to take on all 3 of those ladies in the ring with her, Zelina and Carmella and Liv Morgan. The winner of this match will earn a title shot against Carmella. So they do the fatal 4-way, I believe, right after the commercial break. And of course, Bianca Belair wins like she should have, and she earned a title shot. Now, they have not said where this title shot is going to take place. I'm assuming it's going to be at Extreme Rules, although they might try to pull it off early on SmackDown. They got a title match booked for next week with Balor and Roman, so maybe a couple weeks down the road we'll get Bianca and Becky on SmackDown. That might lead to a rematch at Extreme Rules, something like that. But I hope that this shows a different side of Bianca as a wrestler and a performer, fighting from underneath, and now she's a little bit upset, but I wish she was more upset. I wish everybody was more upset when they lost the title. When somebody loses a title, you should just be a little bit mad. You don't always have to play the theme music for everybody. It doesn't need to work that way. This is some of this unrealistic, overproduced nonsense that's just so goddamn childish. That's why this show is for kids, because these kids need to hear these songs every week. I don't. I just want somebody to do a run-in. I want an old school run-in like back in the day. No music. Austin, when he did a run-in, the music was perfect. But I don't need the Street Profits music to play when they do a run-in, And so it's the same thing with the entrances and stuff. I'm like, sometimes you don't need all of this fucking pageantry, but it's just what WWE does, and it's why their product gives you a fucking seizure half the time. So we got Becky and Bianca on the horizon. Hopefully, in the end, Bianca will be a stronger character for this. I know a lot of people are very critical and unhappy with the way she lost, but I'm always willing to give anything like a chance, even though I think that's head-scratching. Makes a little bit more sense now with Becky Lynch kind of going heel. But if the point was for Becky to be a babyface, then they didn't do her or Bianca any favors at SummerSlam. But with Becky being a heel, okay, this can allow Bianca now to, take it to Becky and hopefully, beat the shit out of her in a match and win the title back. So if that happens, then all is well. Now we got a 2-time champion in Bianca, and Bianca's got a big win, big title victory against Becky Lynch, somebody who hasn't been defeated in a long time, So it's been a really long time. She was the one that ended Ronda Rousey's run and then went on a year-long run of her own and forfeited the title. So based on her track record and her win-loss record over the past couple of years, it's been a long time since somebody put her shoulders to the mat, right? I think it was at... would have been Royal Rumble when she faced Asuka the night she won it, right? Asuka beat her, I believe. I think Asuka might have even tapped her out, if I remember right, in that match. And then Becky came in and inserted herself in the Royal Rumble, won it, and went on to, of course, beat Ronda and Charlotte and never looked back. So the next person to score a pinfall victory or a submission over Becky Lynch, it's going to do some good for their career. I still am not sure if I'm doing that SummerSlam match like that. Anywho, we'll see what happens with them and where they book that match. We also had Cesaro defeating Chad Gable via disqualification when Otis hopped in the ring, caused the DQ, beat the shit out of Cesaro, which just makes me think they're going to book Cesaro versus Otis, and Otis is going to win. We got the debut of Happy Corbin. Baron Corbin's bad luck has run out, and he struck it big while in Vegas for SummerSlam. Now, of course, Corbin's been wearing the spaghetti-stained shirt for about 2 months. He's been down on his luck. He's been doing a great job with this character. It's been so entertaining, and he took his final $35 that he had in his pocket to the casinos and wound up turning that $35 into a fortune. They showed a whole replay of this where he first won $100, then he won $1,000, then he won $100,000. It just kept growing and growing. He was having steak dinners and he had women, and things were just getting better and better for him. And I guess apparently he won $1 million with that $35 that he gambled. So I believe Caleb Braxton is like outside waiting for Roman to show up. Corbin pulls up in a big Bentley, and he gets out, and he says he's Happy Corbin. Now, the only thing that sucks about this is we heard about WWE trademarking Happy Corbin a while back, a couple of months ago. We saw, maybe a month ago or whenever it was, we had heard about the trademark on Happy Corbin, which basically spoiled what they were going to do. His luck is going to turn around. Somebody's going to bail him out or whatever, and then he's going to be Happy Corbin. Well, they did the deal in Vegas. I wonder how far in advance they booked this. Like, I wonder if when Corbin first started becoming down on his luck, if they had Vegas in mind for the turnaround, or if WWE was typical WWE and they just fell ass backwards into this, to where they had no out plan, they had no exit game or exit plan for this or end game, and they were just going to run with it until they came up with something. But then they were like, holy shit, SummerSlam is in Vegas. What a great opportunity to have Baron Corbin win some money. But since they trademarked this Happy Corbin shit so far back, it basically spoiled things that he was going to see better days ahead, which was a big disappointment to a lot of fans, because I think, can all agree that it's been the most entertaining Baron Corbin has ever been. He's been great in this role, and I wanted to see him continue on that road a little bit further. But now he's Happy Corbin. And to be honest, he's pretty good as Happy Corbin, too. So he shows up in the Bentley, and then he heads down to the ring. He's got champagne. He's got the ropes and the red carpet and all that stuff. He even debuted some new music, which is all bling sounding and shit. And he's wearing a $50,000 watch and a $2,000 shirt. And he's got expensive shit everywhere. And he's very happy. Big E winds up coming out with the briefcase. I think Corbin might have called him out. And Corbin's like, look, I know you were really upset when I tried to steal that, but things are different for me now, so I would like to buy it from you. And he offers Big E like $10,000, then $20,000, then $50,000, eventually $100K for the briefcase. And Big E eventually tells him hell no. I kind of wish Big E would have held the briefcase out in front of his hands and went, hell no, just like Hulk Hogan did in 1987 when the $1 Million Man tried to buy the WWE title, and Hogan had the big podium or the platform interview with, I think it was Craig DeGeorge on like Superstars, where he was going to answer Ted DiBiase's offer to buy the title. And he says, hell no, I wish Big E would have done a throwback there. But Big E probably doesn't even remember that. In the end, Big E says hell no, and also says that Corbin better get his ass out of the ring before he kills him. He pulls out like a sandwich and a pencil out of his pocket, offering those things up to Corbin or something, and Corbin eventually backs off and leaves. So we're into a little bit of a program with these two guys. The promo was pretty funny because one of the reasons Baron Corbin was trying to convince Big E to sell the briefcase to him is he was like, look, you could just wind up losing it. You could just cash in and lose it. So, what's the point of even having it? I'm offering you $100,000. Big E even contemplates it. Like, my kids need braces. Big E, I'm pretty sure you can afford your kids' braces without that $100K. But Corbin kind of says that Big E's going to fail his cash-in, and Big E was like, wait, like you did? Kind of thing, and goes on just to say hell no, and he's going to keep the briefcase for now. So Happy Corbin is no longer bummed out Corbin. So far, I don't hate this. I'm a little bit disappointed that we're not seeing down on his luck Corbin, but how long can you really go doing that, you know? I mean, he still is a WWE wrestler. He's still making money that way. So how long in storyline can you really pull off this shit where this guy doesn't have any more than $35? With a locker room full of wrestlers, with Vince McMahon, he could probably just go to Vince McMahon's office and be like, boss, can I just borrow $100K? Vince would give it to him. He could call his friend Cameron Grimes down in NXT, who somebody had a great idea to pair with Baron Corbin now and make them the new Money Inc. Maybe even have Ted DiBiase be their manager on the main roster. Money Inc. Cameron Grimes and Baron Corbin. Happy Baron Corbin. That would be great. They could win the titles, you know? So maybe they'll do that. I don't know. But I think that going in this direction was kind of inevitable, you know, and Corbin can kind of going back to being a douchebag now. But don't discount how good he's doing with this too. He's, you know, he turned on a dime there. He was doing so good in that down on his luck Corbin. Now he's happy Corbin, and he can kind of fall right back in to that douchebag persona that he does so well. And I'm fine with it. I'm okay. I kind of wish it would have came more of a surprise. Like I said, the Happy Corbin trademark a while back kind of spoiled that this was the direction they'd eventually go. But I don't really hate it. I saw a lot of criticisms because people are sad to see sad Corbin go. But I think Happy Corbin's got potential. So let's see how obnoxious he gets and how much lavish spending. I would love to see it be a swerve and have him fuck up and like spend all his money, lose all his money, become a bit too cocky, go back to Vegas and gamble it all away to where he's wearing the very same spaghetti stained shirt. Maybe he kept it, you know, as a memento and he has to put it back on or something like that. I would love even more to see this change of fortunes for him be kind of like short-lived, where he gets a taste of the big time, the expensive cars and the lavish dinners, only for a couple of weeks, maybe until his match with Big E and something happens and he loses and he's right back to being down on his luck again. That could still happen. It could be like a Mankind Cactus Jack kind of thing. He could go back and forth from being Happy Corbin and Sad Corbin. Although, can you get any less creative with those names? Happy Corbin, Sad Corbin. But he might be both. And sometimes he'll be one guy and sometimes he'll be the other. That could be something fun to watch, you know. And then if he hits rock bottom again, then maybe that's when he goes to Cameron Grimes and asks for some money and Grimes bails him out, but then he fucks that up and he's back to being Sad Corbin again. Like he just can't win in life. Might be fun. So we will see. We also got a couple of backstage promos with Edge and Seth Rollins talking about their match at SummerSlam. Now, I told you this was going to be a program. I was like, there's no way you do a match like Edge and Seth Rollins at SummerSlam and do it once and once only. This should be a multiple pay-per-view deal where you see wins on both sides. And I thought it was pretty obvious to most of us that Edge should take that first match at SummerSlam, especially since he lost at WrestleMania. But going forward, we could see a different story here. Now, Rollins, I really liked his promo because it was kind of interesting. He looks a little crazy. I think he might murder Edge. And he kind of goes on to congratulate Edge, says that, hey, you know, I learned something at SummerSlam. If I want to get back to the Universal title, I need to be a little bit more like you. So thank you, Edge. Just a little bit funny tone in the way he was speaking. I'm nervous. He had this look in his eye, and I'm worried that he's going to wind up doing something very evil to Edge. And Edge had a promo as well where he kind of touted his victory, and we'll see. We're going to get an Extreme Rules match between those guys at some point, I'm sure. Next time Edge is on SmackDown, Seth or the others on SmackDown, probably Edge, Rollins will interrupt him or attack him or something like that, and we'll set up whatever they're going to do at Extreme Rules on the 26th. I'm looking forward to it. This is going to be a fun program because these two guys are awesome together. And they're similar. Edge light is what Edge called Rollins, and he's kind of right. We had Rick Boogs and Nakamura defeating the Dirty Dogs in a tag team match as well. And in a funny spot, we had Naomi randomly turning up on SmackDown, which I think we knew she was moved over there already. And she approaches Sonya Deville, who's kind of like on the phone and has no clue she's even going to be there, and completely acts like an asshole to Naomi. Even says something like, what did she say? She was like, well, I didn't know you were coming. It's probably something that Adam Pearce did, and didn't clue me in on. I'm not sure if you really measure up. Measure up? Naomi? Multi-time former world champion, she doesn't measure up to Zelina Vega? Jesus. This water bottle measures up to Zelina Vega in the ring. So, yeah, she measures up just fine when you have a 6-woman roster on that show. with a bunch of losers and Becky Lynch and Bianca and a missing Toni Storm, you need Naomi. So Sonya is an idiot. What an asshole. Oh, man, the sadness going on with the Mysterio family. My God, poor Dominic Mysterio got broken up with by his own dad. Rey Mysterio tells Dominic that he needs to fly on his own. He's spoken to the authorities to get Dominic a match with Sami Zayn tonight. And Dominic seems very brokenhearted about it, very confused why his dad would do this to him. Even during the entrances of the match, he's kind of got his head down a little bit, puts up a good fight against Sami Zayn. In the end, Sami defeats him as Rey watches. Feels like they're still just teasing some sort of maybe heel turn or something like this, tough love or whatnot. I still feel like they missed a great opportunity to do something at SummerSlam, to do the turn there because of the history between those two at SummerSlam. Rey once fought for his son's custody on that very show. And I don't think Dominic has this in him in terms of a promo and his character and his charisma. But, if he were to attack Dominic to attack his dad after the match at SummerSlam and then get on the mic and said, I wish Eddie would have been my dad, or I wish Eddie won that match, or something like that, it could have been fucking gold. So it feels like they're stretching this out a little bit longer. And it might be a way to get Dominic on his own a little bit. They might send him to NXT a bit, or maybe Dominic turns on Rey and kicks Rey's ass. It gets Rey off TV for a little while and allows Dominic to kind of fly on his own a bit on the roster before you bring Rey back and do the match. I don't know, but I don't think they'd be setting all of this up if they didn't plan to have a match between the two. Maybe Rey and Dominic don't want to do that. They don't want to have a match or whatever, but it feels like based on everything that's going on and all the hints that they're teasing, they're still going to do that. So we will see. Finally, on SmackDown, we had the big Bloodline family celebration, celebrating Roman Reigns' big victory over John Cena at SummerSlam. No Brock Lesnar on the show tonight. Now, prior to this big celebration, they did some shit backstage where Heyman was attempting to get into Roman Reigns' door, and it was locked. Caleb Braxton cutely kind of giving him shit about it. It was kind of funny. The Usos come out of the door and ask Paul Heyman if he knew. They kind of speculated that he did. Come on, man. You knew that Brock Lesnar was going to be at SummerSlam. And Heyman's like, of course not. I stand with Roman Reigns or whatnot. So Roman shows up after that, invites Paul Heyman in. And then before they're about to go out to the ring at Gorilla, I think it's like Heyman's trying to hand Roman the belt to take out to the ring because it's a family celebration. And Roman, very quietly and looks at Paul and he's like, you are family. I love you. Kind of bring it like, it's almost like right before like a mob hit or something. So it's almost like Roman might think that Heyman is up to no good here, but he's trying to not sell it or whatever. And they are teasing that maybe they could do a turn with Paul Heyman, maybe going over to Brock and turning on Roman Reigns. They're at least teasing that. And Heyman is claiming to be firmly behind Roman, although it was never explained why he's not Brock Lesnar's advocate anymore. Even Caleb Braxton referred to Brock as Heyman's former client. Heyman never said they weren't clients anymore. Brock just wasn't on TV, so Heyman found a different client or another client. Is Heyman not allowed to have more than one client? So we speculated on this months back when we talked about an inevitable future Roman-Brock feud. I'm like, where does Heyman lie? Does he keep both of them? Does he play the Miss Elizabeth at WrestleMania 5 role where he stands in between, or plays Bobby Heenan when Haku and Harley were going after the crown, and you're just going to side with the winner? Or, is he really just with Roman now? We'll have to see where that goes. But the Usos and Roman and Heyman are all out there for the celebration. And Finn Balor winds up showing up and challenges Roman Reigns next week. He says he would challenge him to a match at the next pay-per-view on Peacock, but he has got no confidence in the company that they would even do that. He's felt wronged a bit, even kind of called out John Cena for Cena jumping in and taking his SummerSlam match against Roman. Says he will deal with Cena in due time. You're going to have to wait on that, Balor, because he's off filming a movie now, but maybe when he comes back, we might get some Balor and Cena action. And winds up challenging Roman next week. Roman winds up leaving. There's a brawl with the Usos and Balor. Street Profits come out to make the save for Balor, and then Balor hits the coup de grace on Yimmy. And that's the end of the show. Big title match next week. Balor versus Roman Reigns. That should be pretty good. It's been, 5 years? Was it 2016 when Roman got in trouble and lost to Finn Balor? Remember? It was a Raw match, I think, and it was Balor versus Roman. Roman had just come back. He had got suspended, and he had just come back to TV, and they put Roman and Balor in the ring, and I think the winner faced Seth Rollins to be the first ever Universal Champion, and Balor won that match totally clean. Might be a different story next week because things have changed in these last 5 years, to say the least. The last thing we got to get into before I got to bounce out of here is just to run really quickly through these Rampage results from last night. Nothing too earth-shattering took place on the show, but there were a couple of things. First one was the Lucha Brothers did defeat Jurassic Express in the finals of that Eliminator tournament, so it will be the Luchas and the Bucks in a cage for the titles at All Out. I mentioned before that I don't know if I really want these two teams inside and confined to a cage, considering how much other cool shit they usually do, but I'm sure the match will still be awesome. We had a recap package of everything CM Punk did last Friday when he debuted on Rampage. And then what we were supposed to have, I guess, a Miro interview. And as he's making his way to the ring, he just tosses poor Fuego del Sol right through the ramp. He must have attacked him backstage, drug his ass out to the ring, talks about him signing his contract last week, saying, you got something you didn't deserve. So now the fans you need to show your face to the Lord, I think he said. And he rips off Fuego's mask, and then Machka kicks him right in the face. Fuego goes down, covering up. Eddie Kingston comes out to make the save. They brawl, big pull apart there, and that match is now official for All Out. Miro defending the TNT title against Eddie Kingston. That's going to be awesome. That's just going to be fun. I think that might be a sleeper match there. Still rooting hard for Miro to win that, but that should be a super, super fun match. Kind of wish they would have perhaps held that one off until September 22nd at Arthur Ashe. That way Kingston can be in New York in front of that crowd. That might be pretty awesome, but I think it All Out will be just as good. And that match is now set. We had the Bunny defeating Ty Conti. Little help from Penelope Ford, the Blade, and some Brass Knucks in that match. And the two of them have kind of formed a little bit of an alliance now because they've got that Women's Casino Battle Royal coming up at All Out. So might help both of their chances. The main event was a tag team match with your AEW World Champion, Kenny Omega, and Stooge Brandon Cutler taking on Christian Cage and the Elite Hunter. Christian hit the kill switch on Cutler for the win as Kenny retreats. Pretty fun match there. Cutler is my favorite Stooge in all of wrestling. He is so fucking great. And the match was pretty decent, even though the Milwaukee crowd left a lot to be desired last night. Don't head back to Milwaukee anytime soon. I don't know what was going on with the crowd on Dynamite or Rampage, but they were just not with it. You'd think they'd have a little bit more energy, considering they just brought an NBA title to the city, but they did not. After the show went off the air, Christian is in the ring celebrating with Kaz. CM Punk comes out, and just the look on his face, he's kind of wearing a hat. He even said on the mic, he said, if you guys haven't seen the clip, go on AEW's YouTube channel and check it out. And he says, I never thought I'd be over enough to be the guy to send everybody home. He's just got this big smile on his face. Him and Christian exchange a couple of words, put each other over. They both say fuck in their promo. Christian says to him, he goes, look, man, he goes, it's a big fucking deal that you are here. And then Punk says something similar. Of course, the crowd pops for that. And like I said, Punk seems to be really enjoying himself. Granted, he's been there a week. He was only there 5 days at the time of this filming. He's only been there a week now. Obviously, he's going to be very happy right up front and right off the bat. I'm sure there's going to be a honeymoon period here that might cool off as well. So a lot of people have brought up that after All Out, after CM Punk wrestles Darby Allin, they should probably put him in a high-profile match or big program ASAP, before some of that novelty of him being back wears off. Get him in a big-time program while he's still hot, generating all that buzz. That's actually a really good point and a really good idea. So hopefully they'll start doing big things with him right off the bat, and I think his match with Darby is going to be really good at All Out. And that leaves us with the All Out card. I'm just going to read through these matches real quick. We did it earlier on, but I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 matches in total. We will start with the buy-in. Obviously, on the pre-show, you're going to want to put CM Punk versus Darby Allin on that. On the undercard, they're probably going to open up with Jericho and MJF or Christian challenging Kenny Omega for the AEW title. We also have Pac and Andrade, which is going to be a great match. Miro defending the TNT title against Eddie Kingston. We've got the Bucks defending the AEW tag team titles against the Lucha Brothers in a cage. Britt Baker defending the AEW title against Chris Statlander. And in our semi-main events, we've got Moxley taking on Satoshi Kojima. We've got that women's casino battle royal, which very well might be the main event, but I hope it's not because I think the main event spot belongs to Paul White and QT Marshall. That'll be your main event. Great looking card there. Sick matches planned, and I am really, really ready for that. And don't forget, Bryan Danielson should be a part of All Out. That's all been confirmed. Basically been confirmed not only by CM Punk on Dynamite last week, but now all over the interwebs. It's going to be a hell of a pay-per-view. So looking forward to that. I think I actually managed to get through all of my notes before I had to get out of here. So let me cruise over here to the chat, answer some questions, get some super chats out of the way, and see if anybody had any other good suggestions for tomorrow's watch-along. Still looking for suggestions to do classic pay-per-view watch-along we're going to do tomorrow, but I haven't picked one yet, so we need some ideas. I've got Unforgiven over here on Twitter. I've got Great American Bash 2000. I don't think I'm going to do that one. Unforgiven 2006. I don't remember what that even was. Heatwave 98 for ECW might be good. Canadian Stampede in Your House. We Are Pro Wrestling suggests a good one there. I do also like Unforgiven 2000, and I like Unforgiven 2001. But I think with Unforgiven 2001, I'm going to wait until between All Out and Extreme Rules. Somewhere mid-September, we're going to do Unforgiven, one of those Sundays. What happened to the Super Chats? Got that one. Just want to make sure I don't miss anybody. We got Divine Ricks stopping by with the $5. Thank you so much for that, man. Hey, Greg, what WWE female talent do you think would be a good fit for AEW? And by the way, Unforgiven 2000 would be a fun watch-along. Unforgiven was Austin's return, correct? What else happened on that show? That might have even been Raven's debut. I think Raven might have shown up there. Taz and Lawler were finishing up their feud. I was at SummerSlam the month before in Raleigh. So I'm trying to remember what the main was. The main must have been, the main was, the undercard was Angle and Triple H. And it means The Rock must have defended the title against somebody. Maybe Benoit again. I don't fucking remember. I don't remember what Unforgiven was. But I think Rock would hold the title, however, until the next month and drop it to Angle, correct? Is that how that went? No, Raheem, I did not hear R-Truth's comments about CM Punk. Missed that. Dominic to AEW. That would be funny. Chris Ludecki, there's $5 from you, man. Appreciate that, and good to see it. It feels like they're going towards a Heyman turn on Roman, but that will bring them back to 2015, and Roman's past year will be pointless if they do it. Well, I think that's still kind of an inevitable thing they're going to have because I feel like Roman, they're going to want to eventually kind of turn him back babyface, but not the babyface he was before. A babyface with the attitude that he has now. They got to be careful how they do that, and I'm in no rush to get it done. But they're making the fans think and teasing us that Paul Heyman's alliance might not be as concrete as he's leading on. Or it might be. They probably don't want us to know because Paul Heyman should be a part of that. You should wonder where his alliance lies. He shouldn't just blindly be behind Roman because why? He's given no explanation to why Brock suddenly doesn't matter to him when he advocated for him like a motherfucker for the past decade. All the promos Heyman cut about how unstoppable and bulletproof and impossible to defeat Brock Lesnar is, all of a sudden, none of that means anything. Heyman's got some explaining to do. So I think that having Heyman a part of that is essential for the program. And I like the little teases that maybe he could turn on Roman. But we'll see. Brock is kind of playing the role of the babyface here, so unless they do a double turn, where Heyman goes to Brock, and Brock beats Roman, and now Roman's a babyface chasing Brock for the title, and then he beats him. But I kind of want to see, I know Brock just lost last time he was on TV. WWE is obviously paying him a ton of money to come back, and he's signed on for 8 matches, which means he's got time to win the title and drop it. You know, I always thought Roman and Brock, when they face like this, Roman should put him down. But is Brock really going to lose his first match after losing the last time he was here, you know, to Drew McIntyre? So I feel like you got to get Brock back on a winning track first before, you know, you beat him. But I don't know. Looks like Crown Jewel is going to be a pretty big Roman versus Brock Lesnar match. We'll see how they do it. I think Brock might win the belt back and then Roman beats him for it or something. We'll have to see how it goes. Bad Blood 2004 is a good one, Barry. Unforgiven 2003. Lockdown 2005, maybe. I don't know if I want to do it. See, I'm looking for something that's going to get some decent views too. I don't even think anybody's going to watch that. But maybe. I have no idea what the card even is. I did an Unbreakable 2005 review a while back, but not sure what Lockdown's about. But I like Bad Blood. Unforgiven 2003, I'd have to look at that card to try to remember what that one was about. No kidding. Transferring Heat today is Sergeant Slaughter's birthday. Was it Slaughter or was it Pat Patterson? I've told the story before, and now I can't remember which one it was. Went to a show years ago, Attitude Era show, pay-per-view or something. Stopped at Waffle House, like was the case so many times. And every time you walked into any Waffle House after a show on the freeway, you were guaranteed to see somebody in there. And this time that we went in happened to be Sergeant Slaughter and Pat Patterson having breakfast together. And as we're leaving, we stop by at the table and say hi. And because I was a wrestling nerd and Mark that called a lot of hotlines and shit like that, I happened to see just that morning, that same day, I happened to see that it was one of their birthdays. I think it was Sergeant Slaughter's birthday. Might have been Pat's, but I'm pretty sure it was Sarge's. And as we're saying hello to him and nice to meet you, and I said, happy birthday, he looked at me so fucking, he goes, how the fuck did you know it was my birthday? And I was like, I just did. It's just a coincidence. I saw it today and here you are, like kind of thing. Kind of freaked him out a little bit. But so I guess that would make today the anniversary of when that happened. So happy birthday to the Sarge. Although I could be misremembering and it was Pat. I can't remember. They were sitting in a little two-seater and it was me and my friend Daniel. We went up to him and I wished happy birthday to one of them. I just don't remember. Oh, thank you for that, Divine Ricks. Appreciate that $5. The Unforgiven main event was Rock versus Benoit versus Kane versus Undertaker. Fatal 4-way. Okay. That could be a good one. Unforgiven 2000. I want to do Unforgiven 2001 in a couple of weeks. So I was hoping to maybe make this decision here on the podcast, but I think I want to just think it through a little bit more. There's some other good ones up here. We got a King of the Ring 94, Survivor Series 95. That would be an interesting one for me. Survivor Series 96, the debut of the Great One. I feel like we're going to do a lot of Survivor Series watch-alongs coming up in late October and November. So some of those big anniversaries, like the 25-year anniversary of The Rock's debut, we should probably do closer to Survivor Series. So that one's going to be on my list, Survivor Series 96 for this year, along with, while I'm at it, just so I don't forget any of these great ideas. I want to write these down for later. I'm going to do Survivor 95 and Unforgiven 01 for sure when I knock those out. Or I'm sorry, not Survivor 95, Survivor 96. Not that we can't do 95. Just don't want to forget those for later. But yeah, I might just have to make that decision tonight because I like all of the suggestions. We got Dijon Pete on Twitter suggesting Starrcade 86. The Cornette bump off the scaffold took place on that show. Yeah. I like the Great American Bash, Canadian Stampede. There's a lot of good ones here that I could consider. So I'm going to do all of that work tonight. When I get home from work, I got to head off to the restaurant right now, put in a couple of hours. I'll be home, and then I'm going to post the audio to this podcast, push it out to the feed on the podcast sites there, and put it on the website if you want to download it. Probably post a link over at Facebook and all that good stuff. And while I'm doing that, I will decide which watch-along to do and post the link to that as well on the YouTube channel. So make sure you're subscribed. Check back to the channel later tonight. You'll see that link up, and I'll throw a link over on the Twitters and all that good stuff for you guys as well. We will plan for 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. on the Pacific Coast tomorrow for the watch along, and it will be a pay-per-view. I just got to decide which one it is. So you just need to stay tuned and see what that's going to be, and we'll hang out tomorrow night, toss back some cold ones, and have a good old time. Thank you very much, guys, for being here. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday and enjoy your weekend, and I'll be looking forward to seeing you guys the next 2 nights here on the channel.